Irregular military as any non-standard military component that is distinct from a country's national armed forces. Being defined by exclusion, there is significant variance in what comes under the term. It can refer to the type of military organization, or to the type of tactics used. An irregular military organization is one which is not part of the regular army organization. Without standard military unit organization, various more general names are often used. Such organizations may be called a troop, group, unit, column, band, or force. Irregulars are soldiers or warriors that are members of these organizations, or are members of special military units that employ irregular military tactics. This also applies to irregular infantry and irregular cavalry units. Irregular warfare is warfare employing the tactics commonly used by irregular military organizations. This involves avoiding large-scale combat and focusing on small, stealthy, hit-and-run engagements. The words regular and irregular have been used to describe combat forces for hundreds of years. Usually with little ambiguity, the requirements of a government's chain of command cause the regular army to be very well defined, and anybody fighting outside it, other than official paramilitary forces, are irregular. In case the legitimacy of the army or its opponents is questioned, some legal definitions have been created. In international humanitarian law, the term irregular forces refers to a category of combatants that consist of individuals forming part of the armed forces of a party to an armed conflict, international or domestic, but not belonging to that party's regular forces and operating inside or outside of their own territory, even if the territory is under occupation. The Third Geneva Convention of 1949 uses regular armed forces as a critical distinction. The International Committee of the Red Cross conditions. In other words, regular forces must satisfy the following criteria. By extension, combat forces that do not satisfy these criteria are termed irregular forces. The term irregular military describes the how and what, but it is more common to focus on the why, as just about all irregular units were created to provide a tactical advantage to an existing military. Whether it was privateer forces harassing shipping lanes against assorted New World colonies on behalf of their European contractors, or auxiliaries, levies, civilian and other standing irregular troops that are used as more expendable supplements to assist costly trained soldiers, bypassing the legitimate military and taking up arms as an extreme measure. The motivation for doing so is often used as the basis of the primary label for any irregular military. Different terms come into and out of fashion, based on political and emotional associations that develop. Here is a list of such terms, which is organized more or less from oldest to latest. Intense debates can build up over which term is to be used to refer to a specific group. Using one term over another can strongly imply strong support or opposition for the cause. It is possible for a military to cross the line between regular and irregular. Isolated regular army units that are forced to operate without regular support for long periods of time can degrade into irregulars. As an irregular military becomes more successful, it may transition away from irregular, even to the point of becoming the new regular army if it wins. Most conventional military officers and militaries are wary of using irregular military forces and see them as unreliable, of doubtful military usefulness and prone to committing atrocities leading to retaliation in kind. Usually, such forces are raised outside the regular military like the British SOE during World War II and, more recently, the CIA's Special Activities Division. However, at times, such as out of desperation, conventional militaries will resort to guerrilla tactics, usually to buy breathing space and time for themselves by tying up enemy forces to threaten their line of communications in rare areas, such as the 43rd Battalion Virginia Cavalry and the Chindits. Although they are part of a regular army, United States Special Forces are trained in missions such as implementing irregular military tactics. However, outside the United States, the term Special Forces does not generally imply a force that is trained to fight as guerrillas and insurgents. Originally, The United States Special Forces were created to serve as a cadre around which stay behind. Resistance forces could be built in the event of a communist victory in Europe or elsewhere. The United States Special Forces and the CIA's Special Activities Division can trace their lineage to the OSS operators of World War II, which were tasked with inspiring, training, arming and leading resistance movements in German-occupied Europe and Japanese-occupied Asia. In Finland, well-trained light infantry Sissi troops use